Today's episode is brought to you by Helix. Helix is offering up to 30% off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for my listeners. Just head on over to helixsleep.com/Ben. Well, it's a day ending in Y, and that means it's time for a new myth to be spread about Donald Trump. And it's all of the same sort. There's the Donald Trump is orange Hitler myth. And then there's the Donald Trump is orange and loves Hitler myth. That is the one that the Democrats and the media are going with yesterday. So yesterday, the Biden team decided to get very, very hot and bothered about a video that was posted by Donald Trump on his Truth Social that included an almost illusory headline. I mean, it's very difficult to see. It's almost indecipherable in this video. It was just a video showing how Donald Trump is successful, and presumably they took some stock newspaper files and they pasted in new headlines. So for those who can't see, this newspaper headline says, "What's next for America?" And then beneath that, there are some smaller headlines that are from the World War II era. And one of them says, "Industrial strength significantly increased, driven by the creation of a unified Reich." Okay, so you have to zoom in to really see it clearly. There it is. This apparently is a reason to declare Donald Trump a Nazi. And let's be clear about what's actually happening here. What's actually happening here is that Joe Biden's party is split between people who actually are pretty okay with today's Nazis, meaning Hamas or the Iranian regime, and people who are really not okay with all of that. That is a battle that is being waged inside the Democratic Party. There is no question at this juncture in time that the party that is more associated with open anti-Semitism in the United States is the Democratic Party. And in fact, there are open anti-Semites who are sitting in the Democratic Party caucus and are being treated with kid gloves by the Biden administration. In fact, the Biden administration has gone so far that they put out a State Department report showing no evidence of Israeli war crimes and said there might be a reason to think Israel is doing war crimes even though we have no evidence. The Biden administration, Joe Biden himself, went out and called for an immediate and permanent ceasefire the other day with Hamas still in control of parts of the Gaza Strip, including American hostages. Joe Biden announced to the Israelis that if they went into Rafah in a way that he didn't like, then he would simply remove particular armaments for Israel. So they have to come up with some counter narrative whereby Donald Trump is the real threat to the Jews. Donald Trump is the serious anti-Semite. Now, Donald Trump does unthinking things on a regular basis. This is one of the hallmarks of his personality. It's been true for literally as long as Donald Trump has been in public life. Does anyone rationally think that the serious anti-Semitism problem in this election lies with Donald Trump? Does anyone really believe that? And if so, I would love to see one iota of evidence. But again, this is all designed to rely on the Joe Biden 2020 argument that Donald Trump was a threat to the republic so deep and abiding that it didn't matter that Joe Biden could no longer speak English. Donald Trump was the person you had to fear. So in response to this dumb video that had a headline that is barely visible, that clearly was a mistake by somebody in putting the thing together. In response to that, the senior deputy press secretary, Andrew Bates, said, quote, "As you know, we follow the law and do not comment on the 2024 election. It is abhorrent, sickening, and disgraceful for anyone to promote content associated with Germany's Nazi government under Adolf Hitler. Just as it is disgraceful to dine with neo-Nazis or to say there were very fine people on both sides after Charlottesville or to falsely claim that Hitler did some good things, any anti-Semitic dog whistling is dangerous and offensive and profoundly un-American." Okay, this is, of course, a giant misdirect. And we talked at the time about Donald Trump making these rather large boo-boos. Right? We had dinner with Kanye West and Nick Fuentes, which was an absurdity and a fool's errand and a bad thing to do, a morally bad thing to do, and from which Donald Trump later, very quickly, dissociated and said he had no idea who Nick Fuentes was. Okay, but in this moment, is there any question which party is more closely tied to today's Nazis? The Democratic Party seems to believe, at least at the highest levels, that if they say that Nazis are bad, the only Nazis that have ever existed are the Nazis. And today's modern analogs, those are people worth negotiating with. Those are people who might become responsible actors on the world stage. The Trump campaign spokesperson, Carolyn Levitt, she said this was not a campaign video. It was created by a random account online and then reposted by a staffer who clearly did not see the word while the president was in court. The Biden campaign then sent another statement to Mediaite. "America, stop scrolling and pay attention. Donald Trump is not playing games. He is telling America exactly what he intends to do if he regains power. Rule as a dictator over a unified Reich. Parroting Mein Kampf while you warn of a bloodbath if you lose is the type of unhinged behavior you get from a guy who knows that democracy continues to reject his extreme vision of chaos, division, and violence." That is idiotic. I'm sorry, that's the stupidest thing. it's stupid because it combines, again, another myth. You remember the bloodbath myth? This is one the media promoted just a few months ago, in which Donald Trump suggested that Joe Biden's border policies, if left in place, would lead to a bloodbath in America. And this was twisted by the media to suggest that Donald Trump was threatening a bloodbath, as in his followers killing people, if he lost the election. It is truly amazing the lengths to which the Democratic Party and their friends in the media will go in order to smear Trump with the most bizarre and stupid possible things. And there's plenty for them to attack Trump on. But if they think this is going to win them the election, good luck to them. And this is politics for dumb people. Fortunately, there are a lot of dumb people for the Democrats. Joy Behar over at The View, who is single-handedly capable of powering a very small wattage light bulb using her intellectual firepower. Here she was suggesting that if you wear a MAGA hat, you might as well be wearing a swastika, which is super weird since like 90% of Orthodox Jews are going to vote for Donald Trump. And given Joe Biden's predilections in the Middle East, will walk over broken glass to do so. Here is Joy Behar declaring that you're a Nazi if you vote Trump.
By the way, out there, that hat that you keep wearing, that red hat that says "Make America Great Again," that tells people that you go along with this. So you might as well just put a swastika on the hat.
Don't do that. Don't do
that. Because we see it anyway.
Oh, really? You might as well put a swastika on the hat as wear a MAGA hat. Really? So, in the opinion of Joy Behar, there are literally 80 million Nazis running around the United States, given the kind of voting that Donald Trump is going to draw in the upcoming election. That is what she believes, or that is just cover for the reality, which is that Joe Biden is a failing president and they have to misdirect. We'll get to more on this in a moment. First, we all know that cancel culture is a threat to free speech, but do you really think that social media companies are innocent bystanders, even when they hide your channel from search results because those channels express the wrong opinion? That's censorship. Nobody should have the right to silence your voice. The good news is you can fight back against the social media bros by using my trusted privacy partner, ExpressVPN. The alarming reality is that big tech companies monitor your searches, the videos you watch, every click you make. That data is then used to serve you those targeted ads, potentially compromising your privacy and free speech. When you use ExpressVPN, however, the tech companies can't see your IP address at all. Your identity is masked and anonymized by a secure VPN server that encrypts all your data. And ExpressVPN makes it super easy. Just one tap on your computer or phone to turn it on, and you're now protected. It's time to say no to censorship. Take back your privacy at expressvpn.com/Ben. You get an extra 3 months of ExpressVPN service for free. That's expressvpn.com/Ben. expressvpn.com/Ben to protect your data today. Again, that's expressvpn.com/Ben to get an extra 3 months of ExpressVPN service for free. How badly is Joe Biden failing? Joe Biden is failing so badly that his current approval rating, according to the latest polling, his current approval rating is 36%. That is Reuters Ipsos, 36%. That is a horrifically low number. And the reason for that, of course, is because he's very bad at the presidenting. And of course, the president no longer speaks English. Here was Joe Biden earlier yesterday in the middle of a speech. I don't even know what he's remotely going for here.
After I signed the PAC Act into law, I handed the pen that I signed it with the tradition of the most responsible.
After I signed the knick-knack paddywhack, give a dog a bone in the lies, hand the pen to Shirley.
Why is he losing this election? No one knows. Well, one of the big problems for the left right now is that its philosophy is a complete mashup of a bunch of different ideas that are mutually exclusive. And we are seeing it all come to fruition before us in the ugliest of possible ways. Modern leftism has basically become a mashup between three principles and the worst aspects of these three principles. So principle number one that the left supposedly embraces is a sort of John Stuart Mill libertarianism. This is particularly true on social issues, in which I'm free to do whatever I want except harm you, right? I can wave my fist around until it hits you in the face. The non-harm principle of John Stuart Mill, which is really a libertarian principle, and if taken properly, means things like property rights, free speech. But that is not what the left totally means by it. Basically, what they mean is that you shouldn't have any pressure on you to perform anything in the way of duty. That effectively, there should be no boundaries on your personal behavior. So John Stuart Mill libertarianism, in which consent is the central value, and there is no higher virtue at all. Okay, that is principle number one. Principle number two is the belief that human beings are their feelings. And so, if human beings are their feelings, then it actually is an act of harm for me to insult your feelings. So it's a perversion of the John Stuart Mill principle. It's a perversion of that principle. Right, so the John Stuart Mill principle, again, is you can wave your hand around until you hit me in the face. You can say whatever you want, and whether my feelings are hurt or not is irrelevant. But the second principle that the left now believes is that I am my feelings. And so if you hurt my feelings, you have done to me a grave harm. You're erasing my identity. That is a concept that's drawn from 19th century Romanticism, which was sort of blowback to the Enlightenment rationality that was put forth by philosophers like John Locke or David Hume. Romanticism was the philosophy of Rousseau, the philosophy of Shelley. You are your feelings. And because you are your feelings, therefore no one can offend you. And then there's the third principle, which is that all failures are the result not of you individually, but of systems surrounding you. And again, that is a concept that is drawn from Rousseau and from Karl Marx. So it's those three principles, modern leftism, a mashup of the worst aspects of this. A supposed libertarianism, in which there's no such thing as virtue, there's just moral relativism, and I can do or say whatever I want so long as it doesn't hurt you, which again, on its own, is at least arguable. But that is mashed up with a second principle, which is that it is a form of harm to insult you or make you feel bad. And a third principle, which is that if you fail in life, it is not as a result of your activity or as a result of your choices, it is the systems surrounding you. Well, when you add all of those together, then politics basically turns into just a power game. Because after all, who defines whose feelings are paramount? Or it may be that me saying a thing hurts your feelings, but me not saying the thing hurts my feelings. So whose feelings are paramount? How are those feelings protected? What systems need to change to bring about this magical personal utopia? What the deconstructionists realized is that basically all of this was specious and all of politics is just a power game. And that's, in essence, what the left ends up promoting, is a power game where they get to sit at the top of the heap and boss everybody else around and structure society in ways that are anathema to a healthy, functioning society. We'll get to more on this in a moment. First, if you're struggling with collections, medical bills, credit cards, personal loans, you should check out PDS Debt. PDS Debt is an innovative one-stop shop to guide you on your journey to freedom from debt. There's no one-size-fits-all solution to becoming debt-free, which is why PDS Debt offers multiple programs and solutions tailored to your specific needs, budget, and future financial goals. Whether you're going through a serious hardship or you just can't seem to keep up with the high interest on your credit cards, PDS Debt will craft a custom solution to give you instant relief and start saving you money. If you're making payments every month on your debt and your balances are not going down, this program is for you. PDS Debt provides options that consolidate your debts into one low monthly payment. Not only does PDS Debt have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, you'll save thousands in interest and fees, pay off your debt in a fraction of the time. PDS Debt cares about helping you get out of debt. Check out all their reviews and see how many people mention PDS Debt employees by name. It is incredible. Right now, PDS Debt is offering my listeners a free debt analysis. It only takes 30 seconds. Head on over to pdsdebt.com/Shapiro. Get your free debt assessment today. That's pdsdebt.com/Shapiro to get started today. We now see at Princeton, for example, that student protesters who violated all of the rules and regulations at Princeton are only going to get probation after the faculty voted 154 to 136 to recommend amnesty. Because, of course, the system is to blame in the end. It is the system that is to blame. Harvard faculty did the same thing, by the way. The Harvard Crimson reports that members of the Harvard Faculty of Arts and Sciences overwhelmingly voted to add 13 students back to the list of degrees recommended for conferral in May after students were initially barred from graduating at commencement over their participation in the pro-Hamas encampment. 15 seniors had been barred from graduating by the ad board for their involvement in the encampment, but the faculty members decided that they were going to vote in favor of people violating the rules of Harvard because it's the system to blame. These students are not to blame for any of their activities. They, in fact, are good-hearted rebels. And again, you see this with regard to international politics, where the left has decided to embrace the world's worst human beings, legitimately the world's worst human beings, and cover for them because their evil is the result of the international system of some dominant, shadowy force that has structured the system not to their liking. So yesterday, the United Nations headquarters took down its flag to half-staff, not in honor of the victims of October 7th, not in honor of the Christians who are being kidnapped in Nigeria, not in honor of the 600,000 Muslims killed in Syria, in honor of the Iranian president, the butcher of Tehran, who died in a helicopter crash. Here they were at the UN, on American soil, by the way, taking down the flag to half-mast. Again, America should withdraw all funding from the UN, take over the building, and turn it into a Trump hotel. That's what I would hope President Trump does when he's reelected. They literally take the flag down to half-staff here in honor of a butcher in Tehran, which is insane. Not sure I've ever seen a more clear example of what this organization, this trash organization, is. And of course, this philosophy dominates our media as well. Yesterday, it emerged that a New York Times reporter named Farnaz Fasihi was caught on tape urging other reporters not to interview an Iranian dissident, lest the dissidents in Iran actually be heard from. Lily, make sure Emma doesn't interview the crazy. Miss Fasi, your mic is open. Okay, so that is a New York Times reporter saying, do not interview the dissident. Do not. And that is, again, because of that third left-wing principle, which is that failure in society is a result of broad Western values. And that's the one that unifies everyone in the end. So what is the solution, according to the left? The solution to the left is that the elites on the left retain top-down control. The most obvious way they can do this is to retain control of the world economy. But they need a cover to do that. They can't just grab control of the world economy without some blowback. The cover that they use, therefore, is, you wait for it, global warming, of course, because that's a global problem, and the only response is global control. The only way to solve global warming is with top-level global control. This is the case that is being made by our Treasury Secretary. Here she was yesterday, explaining the top priority for the Biden administration in an era of historic inflation, in an era of economic stagnation. The top priority is climate and clean energy.
The U.S. and Europe both know that bolstering energy security will depend on driving sustainable growth. We need clean energy economies that are less vulnerable to shocks, including from geopolitics. And we need to build these economies in ways that expand economic opportunity. President Biden has made this a top priority. At home, the Inflation Reduction Act is fueling investments in manufacturing and clean energy and expanding economic opportunity across the United States.
Okay, it's not going to expand economic opportunity across the United States. It's going to toss trillions of dollars into boondoggles that are a complete waste of time and money. But the real goal is to restructure the entire economy. This is something the World Economic Forum has made absolutely clear. In other news today, Klaus Schwab, who is the head of the World Economic Forum, has said that he's going to retire. We'll see who he designates as his successor. But the agenda for the Great Reset, that is his term, not mine, the agenda is a complete rejiggering of the global economy in the name of elites who wish to rule top down, in the name of this leftist ideology. Janet Yellen then suggested the transition to green energy is the greatest opportunity No, it really, really is not. I wish that green technologies were significantly more developed than they are. They simply are not ready for prime time.
The transition to green energy is now increasingly recognized as the greatest economic opportunity of the 21st century, with an estimated over $3 trillion in investment opportunities each year between now and 2050.
Okay. No one believes that this is about providing economic opportunity. It is all about, as Joe Biden has suggested, equity, diversity, inclusion, social justice. It is all about imposing a regime from the top down. We'll get to more on this in a moment. First, emergencies generally come without warning. When the next one comes, you're not going to have a second to spare, which is why you should get ready before an emergency strikes. Your supplies should be within reach, ready to grab and go at a moment's notice. Secure those supplies at preparewithben.com. If you're unsure how to get started, check out their 4-week emergency food kit. Right now, you'll get $200 off your 3-month emergency supply. I grew up in California, so they told you to prepare for natural disasters like earthquakes. Now I'm down in Florida, and you have to prepare for the hurricanes as well. It turns out pretty much everywhere you go, there's the possibility of some sort of unforeseen emergency, but you know it's going to happen, so why not prep now with My Patriot Supply's 3-month emergency food supply. It provides delicious breakfast, lunches, and dinners lasting up to 25 years in storage. You can customize your supply, get a mega protein kit with real meat or gluten-free options. These kits provide over 2,000 calories every day, and they are simple to prepare. You just add water and heat, and then you eat. If you order by 3 p.m., your food kit will ship fast, free of charge on the same day. You order it, stuff it in the closet, forget about it until the emergency arises. Invest in your safety and well-being by securing your food storage today. Go to preparewithben.com for $200 off your 3-month emergency supply. That's preparewithben.com, preparewithben.com. Now, all of this is leading to what a columnist over at the Free Press and I actually earlier have called revenge of the normies. Revenge of the normies is happening. It's happening in real time. People do not like this crap. They do not like the application of unthinking libertarianism to matters like child pornography. They do not like the idea that if you are offended in your feels, that this amounts to a harm that must be controlled top down by our institutions and government. And they really don't like the idea that everyone's individual failure is the result of a corrupt system. They don't like any of this. And you can see it in the polling. Now, I understand that these narratives are very popular online. But as I've been saying for a while now, online is not real life. It is not real life. X is not real life. Facebook is not real life. TikTok is certainly not real life. None of these places are real life. They are geared for virality, meaning that their entire reason for being is to get you to click on more things, which means feeding you more things that feed your feels. That is what they are there for. But when people actually get outside and touch grass, and then when they are asked questions like, who do you approve of? Who do you like? It turns out that people like precisely the institutions that protect traditional values from the left. The most popular institution in the United States, by far, this is a Harvard-Harris poll, by far, the most popular institution in the United States is the United States military, clocking in at 83% support. 83% support. Only 10% don't support. The second most popular institution in the United States, the police, at 75% support. Only 20% do not support. The third most popular remains the FBI, despite its myriad foibles and failures, because it turns out that people still believe that criminals ought to be investigated even if the FBI is misused. And when you get to international politics, the approval rating for Ukraine is currently, in the United States, 53%, compared to just 27% who say they disapprove or have an unfavorable view. For Israel, 53% have a favorable view, compared to just 26% who do not. The U.S. Supreme Court has high levels of adherence at 52% positive and just 38% negative. Believe it or not, even Fox News has a favorable rating that is better than its unfavorables. Fox News clocks in at 49% favorable and 41% unfavorable. Compare that to CNN. CNN is stuck at 44% favorable and 44% unfavorable. In fact, when you move all the way down the list to the things that are least popular in the United States, it is all left-wing priorities. Hamas has a 14% approval rating. Antifa has a 17% approval rating. China has a 20% approval rating. The Palestinian Authority has a 20% approval rating. These campus protesters who are being touted as the legion of moral leaders by our media, they currently have a 25% approval rating with 57% of Americans disapproving. MSNBC is stuck at 39% approval compared with 38% disapproval. So, in other words, the normies still exist, and they are legion. They are, in fact, a silent majority. And that's not just true in the United States. It's true abroad as well. It's certainly true in the United States. You're seeing increasing moves by the population to simply reject the matrix that has been created by the left wing in terms of thought. So, for example, over in Oregon, a high school boy raced a bunch of girls and won the state championship. The person's name is Aiden Gallagher. Gallagher finished first with a time of 23.83 seconds in the 200-meter race, which is not an amazing time for a dude. Astor Jones from Roosevelt High School finished second at 24.023. Gallagher finished second in the 400-meter finals, missing first by only 0.15 of a second. Now, the OSAA, that's the Oregon School Activities Association, allows anyone to participate based on their asserted gender identity. And here's what the tape looks like. Okay, look at this gigantic dude just out racing all the girls because that is a large dude. Okay, but listen to the crowd. That's the more important thing. The crowd boos because the normies are not going to sit still for this any longer. They realize that the protection of normal, virtuous lifestyle requires the rejection of this amalgamation of exaggerations of bad ideas. That actually tradition is pretty good, that the only thing that holds together the leftist philosophy is opposition to tradition. And it turns out tradition is pretty good. And what we're about to see is a serious, real backlash against these sorts of transgressive values. We'll get to that in just one moment. First, get ready for something special tonight. Join me, along with Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, Andrew Klavan, and Jeremy Boring, backstage 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, streaming live and free over at Daily Wire Plus. We are taking you behind the scenes and beyond the headlines at Daily Wire Plus, and we have been told that Jeremy Boring has a special announcement you'll hear first during Backstage. We've been busy. It's been way too long since we've been together. There's a lot to discuss. This is your chance to hear about all of it. Don't miss out. Watch live and free at Daily Wire Plus tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. Okay, meanwhile, the revenge of the normies, it is going to happen. So, while the Europeans are proclaiming their moral superiority over the rest of the world, including Israel fighting a war to extirpate Hamas, the Europeans are busily blocking everybody from entering their continent. According to the Washington Post, with EU backing, North African nations have been pushing migrants into the desert. According to the Washington Post, quote, "There is Algeria. Follow the light," the Tunisian official barked at the black migrants. If you're seen here, you will be shot." Francois, a 38-year-old Cameroonian, obeyed, jumping off the bed of a pickup truck near the desolate Algerian frontier. A day earlier, the rickety boat attempting to carry him and other hopeful sub-Saharans to Europe, including his wife and 6-year-old stepson, had been interdicted by the Tunisian Coast Guard in the cobalt blue waters off the coast. Still wet and cold, the group of 30 migrants, including 2 pregnant women, now walked toward their punishment, the desert. Their ordeal, an odyssey of at least 345 miles from sea to sand, recounted by Francois and verified by matching GPS tracking on his phone with images and videos he captured during 9 days of wandering, illustrates one example of the draconian practices being deployed in at least 3 North African nations to dissuade sub-Saharan migrants from risky crossings to Europe. Remember that time the Europeans lectured the United States all the damn time about closing our southern border? Yeah, they are just stranding people in the desert in Africa. The clandestine operations, mainly targeting black migrants, had a silent partner, Europe. A year-long joint investigation by the Washington Post, Lighthouse Reports, and a consortium of international media outlets shows how the EU and individual European nations are supporting and financing aggressive operations by governments in North Africa to detain tens of thousands of migrants each year and dump them in remote areas, often barren deserts. European funds have been used to train personnel and buy equipment for units implicated in desert dumps and human rights abuses, records and interviews shows. Migrants have been pushed back into the most inhospitable parts of North Africa, exposing them to abandonment with no food, no water, kidnapping, extortion, sale as human chattel, torture, sexual violence, and in the worst instances, death. In Mauritania, Morocco, and Tunisia, vehicles of the same make and model as those provided by European countries to local security forces rounded up black migrants from streets or transported them from detention centers to remote regions. European officials held internal discussions on some of the abusive practices since at least 2019. The EU provided more than 400 million euros to Tunisia, Morocco, and Mauritania between 2015 and 2021 under its largest migration fund, the EU Emergency Trust Fund for Africa, an initiative to foster local economic growth and stem migration. So they've just been paying all of these North African countries to basically dump people in the desert because they don't want people entering the continent at the same time that they are complaining about human rights abuses in other parts of the world. So, number one, the Europeans are hypocrites. But number two, it is well worth pointing out at this point that civilizations seek to protect themselves from people who do not share their values. And that is not bad. That is not wrong. The fact that this has tremendous, terrible human cost is a reality of the world, because the simple fact of the matter is that you cannot have open borders and consider yourself a civilization. You cannot. Open borders are reserved for people who wish to come and assimilate to your way of life. And you can see this in nation after nation in Europe. The right-wing backlash that the media have been lamenting for years on end, the hue and cry about the election of Geert Wilders in the Netherlands, or Viktor Orban in Hungary, or Giorgia Meloni in Italy, all of that has been a backlash to the reality, which is European populations do not want people to enter who are not ready to assimilate, not interested in assimilation, and they do not feel a duty to simply ingest foreign populations because other places on earth are bad places to be. That is a normal thing. That is not wrong. It is not wrong for a civilization to seek to protect itself. Now, you can say that the means by which it protects itself are wrong, bad, that there are better ways to do it, but the reality is the reality. Multiculturalism is a giant fail. It is an enormous failure. People have different value systems. Those different value systems are not always compatible. We'll get to more on this in just one second. First, my days are obviously incredibly full. I've got the show, I've got the company, I'm a dad, I've got a lot going on. And I start to run down really quickly if I don't get a good night's sleep. That is why I appreciate and rely heavily on my Helix mattress. Helix harnesses years of mattress expertise to offer that truly elevated sleep experience. The Helix Elite Collection includes 6 different mattress models, each tailored for specific sleep positions and firmness preferences. If you're nervous about buying a mattress online, you don't have to be. Helix has a sleep quiz that matches your body type and sleep preferences to the perfect mattress, because why would you buy a mattress made for somebody else? I took that Helix quiz. I was matched with a firm but breathable mattress. I love it. My wife loves it. We are big Helix fans at the Shapiro house. In fact, whenever we have people stay over at the house and they're sleeping on that Helix Sleep mattress, they always ask where they can get one just like it. And then they go home and buy a Helix Sleep. Helix has a 10-year warranty. You can try it out for 100 nights, risk-free. They'll pick it up for you if you don't love it, but you will. They've got financing options and flexible payment plans as well. Helix is offering up to 30% off all mattress orders plus 2 free pillows for my listeners. Just head on over to helixsleep.com/Ben. It's their best offer yet. It's not going to last long. helixsleep.com/Ben with Helix. Better sleep starts right now. So Finland, it has a new right-wing government. It proposed on Tuesday a new law that would allow frontier guards to turn away asylum seekers at the border, following a migrant surge Helsinki said was orchestrated by Russia. Prime Minister Petteri Orpo told reporters new legal tools were necessary after the arrival last autumn of about 1,000 migrants without visas on their eastern border with Russia. The Nordic country closed its border with Russia in mid-December after the surge of migrants. Now again, are they wrong to do that? No, they are not. They get to protect their country. Meanwhile, experts are warning in Sweden that the country is on the brink of civil war as the country is gripped by migrant violence, according to the Express. Goran Adamson, senior lecturer in sociology at Uppsala University, told Express his country was becoming a capital of violence, partly due to a wave of suspected criminals moving there. According to official figures from the Swedish National Council for Crime Prevention, the number of fatalities a year per million from gun violence is more than double the European average. In 2017, there were 281 shootings in Sweden. By 2022, that number was 391. The Swedish rate of death by shooting was more than twice that of the UK, despite Sweden having a population less than 1/6 the size. The gun murder rate in Stockholm was 30 times that of London, despite having a population of less than 1 million. The main pockets of the violence are not found in the center of the city, according to Adamson, but in residential neighborhoods. He pointed out a link between the sharp uptick in crime and the marked increase in immigration into the country. In 2017, 58% of those suspected of crime on reasonable grounds had migrated to Sweden. For murder, attempted murder, and manslaughter, those figures were 73%. The scholar said, even though migrants are generally law-abiding people, still the likelihood of a migrant, especially from the Middle East or Africa, especially below 50 years of age, committing a crime is much, much higher than for a Swedish person. These are just facts. This guy is not a right-winger. He says this material is not political in the least. This is just based on the statistics. There's a reason why the right in Sweden is rising. There's a reason why the right in France is rising. There's a reason why the right in the United States is rising as well. As it turns out, the conflagration of all of these values is an explosion. It is very bad for the West. It is a destruction of traditional mores when it comes to family and sexuality. It amounts to open borders that destroy the internal cohesion of a society because you believe that failures in other countries are a result not of their systems, but of ours. It results in the destruction of church. It results in the destruction of pretty much everything that is good in the name of a dictatorship of the elite who believe they can restructure society according to their own whims and desires to make everybody magically flower into the kind of human being they wish to hang around. But guess what? That is not reality. It is not. It is one of the reasons, by the way, why the Israel-Gaza conflict, the Israel-Hamas conflict, has become tip of the spear for this entire conflict. Why? Because on the one hand, you have an incredibly well-developed, economically developed, successful, technologically innovative, liberal democracy comprised about 80% of Jews and 20% of non-Jews, who are virtually all Arab. And on the other side, you have a terrorist group with no minorities that is seeking to murder every Jew in the region, tyrannize the population, steal the aid that is currently coming in. And somehow, the international left has found sympathy for those people. Somehow the international left has decided that those are the people, the Hamasniks, who really deserve support. But in the end, the normies are going to win for a couple of reasons. One, there are more of them than there are of the crazies who believe that all of the systems need to be torn down. The revolutionaries are not that large in number. They make a lot of fuss because they have no jobs and they have no lives. So they can go out in the streets by the hundreds of thousands, but there are not that many of them statistically by polling data. But there's another reason. Normies tend to be successful. People who value tradition and family and church and free markets and free speech. These are all people who tend to be more successful in life, which means that basically the revolutionaries only exist at the sufferance of the normies. And that sufferance is growing really, really short. That does not mean that it's not a threat to the West. It certainly is. Get to more on this in just a moment. First, are you or somebody you know fighting the battle against cancer? For the last 25 years, Envita medical centers have been pioneering personalized, cutting-edge treatment programs for patients all over the world. Envita has been the leader for patients looking for advanced immunotherapy and genetically targeted therapies all while focusing on fewer side effects and better patient outcomes. As a global leader in oncology care, Envita is committed to healthcare freedom for everyone. They've spearheaded a revolution in employer healthcare options, empowering companies to provide their employees with access to not only top doctors, hospitals, and technologies, but also first-of-its-kind nationwide personalized medicine coverage. Envita is doing all of this, plus offering significant tax and cost savings, full transparency, and liberation from the grip of commercial insurance carriers. Whether you're a patient in need or a company looking to break free of monopolized healthcare insurance, Envita could have the solution for you. To learn more about their treatment options and their company insurance programs, visit Envita.com or visit EnvitaHealth.com to learn more about their company insurance programs. That's Envita, spelled ENVITA.com for treatment options, or EnvitaHealth.com to learn more about their company insurance programs. So, what's the real threat here? The real threat is that this leftist ideology, this gross left-wing ideology, has pervaded the younger generation in particular. There's a brand new poll out from NBC News that separates off views by generation, baby boomers versus Gen Z. So the baby boomers are to blame for our current problems because they decided to spend way too much money. They're the ones who mainline social liberalism into the bloodstream of body politic. And they did a really crappy job raising their kids as a general matter, like a truly terrible job. So what is the result of that? Well, the result of that is that their grandkids and kids have horrible values. According to the NBC News poll, baby boomers, people who are aged 59 to 77, 76% of them believe that patriotism is very important. Generation Z, those are people aged 18 to 26 in this poll, only 32%, less than a third, believe patriotism is very important. 65% of baby boomers believe that belief in God and religion are very important. Only 26% of 18 to 26-year-olds think so. As far as having children, 52% of baby boomers believe that's very important. So by the way, that is a great indicator of how skewed the values of the baby boomers are. That number should be 100%. You know what's really, really important? Like the most important thing you can do as a human being? Have kids and raise those kids well. It's literally the most important thing you can do as a human. And only 52% of baby boomers think that's a very important thing. No wonder then that their grandkids, only 23% say that having children is very important. And unsurprisingly, while 2/3 of baby boomers say that America is the best place to live, only 1/3 of Gen Zers believe that. Unsurprisingly, Americans 18 to 29 are also more likely to say they have a positive impression of socialism, 44% favorable. Only 40%, by the way, are favorable on capitalism. It is also worth noting that people aged 18 to 29, according to Pew Research Center, favor Palestine over Israel 33 to 14, which demonstrates true levels of extraordinary moral blindness. So, the reality is that all of the bad values bled down generationally. So the true problem for the United States is the kids, Marty. Something's got to be done about the kids. Now, one of the solutions there is that it turns out that the value system of the left is a life of misery. It's women in the forest beating sticks against the ground, shouting at the wind. And in that misery, there will be a bunch of people who eventually turn back to something more traditional. But the other solution is going to be a muscular defense of traditional values, not a shy defense, not being polite, not being nice, explaining in very clear and convincing terms that the value system promulgated by the left is not only a lie, it is a damaging lie. It wrecks the country, it wrecks individuals, it leads to broken souls and broken lives. Making that case is vital. And if older people won't do it, if middle-aged people won't do it, there won't be anybody to do it. And what you will end up with is a generation of revolutionaries who do outnumber the normies. And at that point, all the systems get broken. And when the systems get broken, ain't no fixing those systems. These systems were built over the course of hundreds of years and embody certain eternal and fundamental truths. When they break, it is really much harder to fix them than it is to preserve them. So in other words, to my normie friends, get on your horse. It's time to ride. Already coming up, we'll jump into the vaunted Ben Shapiro Show mailbag. If you're not a member, become a member, use code Shapiro. Check out for 2 months free on all annual plans. Click that link in the description and join us.